Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our hymnal preview. On the way in, you should have picked up one of these paper copies. This has the music in it that we'll have the chance to look at today. And then we also handed out these Christian worship preview, more professionally published things with the staple binding and everything. And these were some resources that Synod sent us a whole bunch of. We're not really going to talk about it a whole lot today, but it's something you're free to take with you and peruse. It has just little samplings of all kinds of different things that have been published related to the hymnal. So feel free to keep this and take it with you. We were mailed a whole box of them by Synod some time ago to use for this. But we'll mainly be looking at this paper copy one. A couple of notes before we start. First of all, the copyright rules that are in place for a book that has not quite been distributed yet are rather complicated. I don't really know exactly how it works, but to make a long story short, there are only certain things that we are able to preview, and that's the things that are in here, the things that we have copyright permission to preview. So the rest of it will be coming very shortly. We do have a couple of full copies of the hymnal, so you're free afterwards to come up and take a look at it. We have 2 pre-production copies of the hymnal, and then we also have 1 copy of the Psalter, which is a book that contains musical settings of all 150 psalms. And so they sent us those things to show yet. I'm thinking, when I've heard, the hymnals should actually start being shipped in the next couple of weeks here to congregations as the orders start to be fulfilled. But they did put those two advanced copies and 1 Psalter in the mail for every congregation. And so I got those up front, and afterwards you're welcome to come up and take a look. A couple of notes just about some big picture things with the new hymnal. First of all, one of the changes you'll notice right away is they sort of fixed that pagination problem that was always a little bit confusing in church, where we had the small page numbers for the front part of the hymnal and then the hymn numbers. And if you aren't familiar with our church and our way of doing things, it's kind of confusing. And the way that they fixed that is the hymns just start on page 300. And so there's pages before that of the liturgies and the psalms and the devotional resources and all kinds of other things that are part of a good hymnal. And then the hymns start on page 300. So that's one of the things that you'll notice. If you open to the back, the last hymn is 900 something. There aren't 900 hymns in the hymnal. There's about 600 some, the same as our current hymnal. So that's one change you'll notice. Another one that you'll see when you page through the hymnal is that there are a lot of familiar hymns that we know from our current hymnal. I think about 2/3 or so of the hymns in this new hymnal are the same as ones that we have. And of the new ones, there are some that are things that were composed in the last generation or so. There are some, and we'll see some of these today, that have actually been around for a long time. They just haven't been included in our hymnal for one reason or another. And one other philosophical thing along those lines to keep in mind also is that a resource like this is designed to be used by the entire Synod. And so our church body has, over the last couple of decades, become more diverse than it was 50 years ago and is in more parts of the country, and there's more churches that are doing things in different ways. And so this hymnal is designed to have things that every congregation can make use of. And so there are many, many things in here that will be very similar to what we're used to here at St. John's, and that's primarily probably what we'll use. There's also things that are a bit different for people of other cultures and for churches that are doing things in different ways. And we may use little bits and pieces of that here and there, but a new hymnal does not mean like a huge sweeping cultural change to the way that we do worship. The vast majority of what's in here is similar to what we do. There are also some new things that we can look at and experiment with and enjoy as well. So it's kind of a good mixture of new and old, where we can introduce some new stuff without meaning a new hymnal have wholesale change to everything that we've been doing. Last thing, the same thing is true with the liturgies. When you look at the liturgical settings in the new hymnal, you'll find some that we are familiar with and have in our current hymnal, and you'll also find some new ones. And one of the efforts that they made that's a little bit different from our current hymnal is they standardized the texts of the liturgies. So if you look at our hymnal now, you'll find some settings of the service that have the Apostles' Creed, for example, after the sermon, and there's some that have it before. And we kind of rearrange things at St. John's to make it be a consistent order each week. And that's the approach the new hymnal took too. So all the services, even if they're different musical settings, have the same text throughout. So they're trying to get the memorableness of repeated liturgy to be combined with the freshness of different kinds of music in different settings and not having the exact same songs every week. So kind of trying for that mix. That's one of the philosophical things you'll see when you look at it as well. With that said, we'll look at the handout here and take a look at some things that are from the new hymnal. And we've kind of tried to pick things that will give you a variety of samplings of what's available in the new hymnal. And the first section you can see is titled Familiar Tunes Paired with a New Text. So this first hymn, Lord, help us walk your servant way. You'll recognize the tune as one that's in our current hymnal, and I think it'll probably be familiar to you, but the text is entirely new. And to start with, we're just going to sing this in the way we are accustomed to with organ accompaniment, and we'll sing the first 3 stanzas, and you can try out the familiar tune with the new text. All right, so not too much different from what we're used to, right? One of the interesting things they've done with the new hymnal is the accompaniment resources that are with it allow for a huge variety of instrumentation. And one of the things that they're trying to do is have every hymn have music to be accompanied by organ, as we just did, and then also by an ensemble of piano and other instruments. So we're going to sing the same hymn again, and we'll use piano and other instruments. Just note that there's a little interlude between each of the stanzas. And we'll get the same hymn, but with a different feel and different instrumentation. So the new hymnal will be set up that the majority of the hymns will be flexible in this way and can be used in different ways, more so than our current one is designed for. still a familiar tune done in a new way, and the hymnal's designed to offer the flexibility to do hymns in both of those kinds of ways for a variety of different approaches in worship. Some of the, if you turn over to the next page, page 3, some of the hymns that will be new in Christian worship are not necessarily ones that are new to us. So I think this next one you'll recognize from one of the Advent services that we use, the evening prayer setting on the weeks when we've done the piano-based one. So this should be a familiar song from there, page 3. Okay, so that's a new hymn that is not in our current hymnal, but yet has been in use in our circles for some time through other things. The next one on page 4 is another one that is also new to the hymnal, and this is also one that is probably somewhat new to us. I think some of our choirs here have sung it, but I don't know that we've used it for congregational singing at all. And one of the things about this one that's interesting is this is an example of what you might call a modern hymn, and that you could still go talk to the composer. Kenneth Cauchy is still alive, so this has been written in the last couple of decades. And the way that this one will work, we'll sing the refrain twice at the beginning and twice at the end, but otherwise it's just refrain, verse throughout.
Have mercy upon
All right, so that one might be a little bit less familiar. I think some of our choirs have sung it, but I don't know that we've used it in worship beyond listening to it a few times. The next one on page 5 is another one of those ones that we'll look at the settings that can be done with different instrumentation. So like we did before, we'll sing this first accompanied by organ, and then we'll repeat it with the ensemble of piano and instruments. So we'll do all 3 stanzas with organ first. So the first hymn that we did that had 2 different instrumentations to it is one that you could maybe tell was originally probably used with organ, and then the ensemble instrumentation was written for it later. This one actually goes the other way. You might have recognized this song if you listen to Christian radio. This is one of the Keith and Kristen Getty songs, and it would have originally thus been written for an ensemble. But as you can hear, the organ setting that's available with the new hymnal allows it to be used in a very flexible way. So you can see the 2 different approaches to music that can be used with the same hymns and the same text, and that's kind of a theme throughout the new hymnal, is to make something that can be used in a wide variety of different ways while still having a shared group of hymns that people can enjoy and appreciate across our church body. So we'll sing that same hymn now again, but this time with the ensemble instrumentation. All right, the next two that we have are ones that do have a long history in the Christian church, but have not been included in either of our previous hymnals. And so it'll be a chance to sing some things that you probably are familiar with from other places, but now they are part of our hymnal repertoire for church. So the first one is called God Loves Me Dearly. All right, and the next one on page 7 is another real well-known one, a Christmas carol that I think we are probably all familiar with, but for one reason or another has not been in either of our hymnals so far. And we've sang it a few times at our Christmas Eve lessons and carols here at St. John's, but it'll be nice now to have the full set of musical resources that go with the hymnal to be used with this particular favorite. If you turn over to the last page, you will find obviously a very familiar hymn. And one of the other new things that will be in the new hymnal is a number of the familiar hymns will be offered with several different kinds of rhythmic settings. And if you aren't sure exactly what that means, you can maybe think of in our current hymnal how A Mighty Fortress, there's 200 and 201, so there's two different settings of the same thing. It's very nearly the same tune, but the rhythm to it is a little bit different and it sings a little bit differently. And they've added a few more hymns that have that kind of accompaniment available. So one of those is Now Thank We All Our God. There's the version we are very familiar with that's in our current hymnal, and then there's also the version that's printed here that's just a little bit different and sings a little bit differently and offers some variety to some of these old favorites. So what we'll do with this one is we'll sing just 2 stanzas of the familiar way that we are used to, just so you kind of have that in your head, and then we'll try 3 stanzas with the new way and kind of compare the two and just see that this is something that'll be available with a number of the more familiar hymns in the new hymnal. So just another layer of variety. think I announced those in the wrong order, but you guys probably got the picture. We had the new one first and then the familiar one second. But you can see the comparison between those two. So there'll be a number of hymns that are offered with those alternate rhythmic settings that just sing a little bit differently. And so we can have some variety to the old things without really changing them all that much. That is what we have today for the preview. Would ask on your way out that you do drop these off for copyright reasons. We do need to destroy them. We can't have them laying around. So if you could leave those on the table by the door. Now, next Sunday in our service, we will be singing 2 of these hymns. So we do have copyright permission for that. So you got a little preview of what we'll be singing next week. And then also, just a reminder too, that we do have 2 copies of the hymnal up here. If you'd like to come and take a look, you are welcome to do so. There's also 1 copy of the Psalter. And before sending you on your way, I guess I would just ask if there's any questions anybody has about things. We do have time. We could talk about that a little bit. Go ahead. Yeah, the question was if their new hymns will be highlighted in some way so that you can know which ones are new. I don't think that's the case in the book itself, but I think I've seen that list published online somewhere. So that is, I believe that is available. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head where exactly to find it, but I think I have seen that somewhere. So that is probably out there. I think, is it christianworship.org? Okay. Mandy said she can send you the link to that. It is on the hymnal website, but I guess it's buried a little bit, but that is available. John.
Council Project is a donation to purchase new hymnals, correct?
Correct. Council Project is donation to the new hymnals.
How much is one hymnal cost? So if we wanted to give, like, for our family how much is one hymnal?
Yeah, that's a good question. My understanding is they're about $25. So if you wanted to think of it in terms of donating for the hymnal that you will quote unquote use when you come to worship, it's $25 per hymnal is what we would be looking at to outfit our sanctuary with new hymnals. Good question. Isaac. Will we be singing the full text of Psalms in church? I think that depends on the psalm. Some of them are quite long, and I think they have shrunk them down to a manageable length for worship. For example, Psalm 119 with over 100 verses would be quite the project to sing in church. You can look at the Psalter up here and see how they have it laid out. They've got multiple settings of all 150 Psalms in there. So there'll be a lot more options of things that we could do with the Psalm between the readings than what we currently have with our hymnal now. Anything else? If not, thanks for coming, and look forward to the preview of 2 of these hymns in our worship next week. And we hope that the new hymnals will be arriving sometime before the new year is the plan. So, thank you.